The living room, where the family meets to discuss issues, any issue which may be bothering one of the family members. That's what we do each and every Tuesday on WAC 90.1 FM with Ricardo Mitchell and DJ Aaron 868. We have casual conversations on serious topics, from sports to culture, mental health to economics, relationships to life lessons. Join us each and every Tuesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on WAC 90.1 FM. The Living Room, casual conversations on serious topics.
It is currently 6 p.m. here in Trinidad and Tobago. I don't know what time it is where you are, but I'm glad to know you're locked on to the true nation station, WACK 90.1 FM, where we are
culture crazy.
How much time did City cook there?
Yeah, we're going for 4.
Okay, 4. Any specific reason why I went with 4?
Well, after having done 50 episodes visually, I think it's only sense that we start a new season. What do you think?
Yeah, because this is episode 51, as you heard in the promo this week, all right? Let's kick it off first and foremost, as we always do, all right? Must give thanks and praises to the Almighty for granting us the gift of life and seeing another day. No matter what time of day it is, you must always
give thanks.
Secondly, we must say thank you to those that went before us, and even though it's a new season, we continue to thank the original inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, the Tainos and the Kalinagos, because we all know that Columbus lied, but also to our brother in music, Tony P, where the P this week stands for?
Postpone.
What you postponing, brother, man?
Yeah, all the plans that I had to wake up and watch cricket are postponing all of them. I forget snoozing, right? Switch off. You know what? Anyway, it is what it is. Scotland, lad. Scotland.
No, Namibia.
The P this week.
Yeah, boy. Anyway, you know, it's a new season. If, as you can see, there's some new furniture inside the living room, so we're looking a little bit prettier. But also there are also some new segments which we are going to introduce. Ricardo, really quickly before we get to the new segments, hang your hat.
Oh yeah, I just want to hang my hat on community. You know, for the people who are, and with the new P word, going to participate in the program going forward. For the people who've been sharing the promos, for the people who've been sticking by with us as we try to figure out what it is we're doing and how we're doing it, I just want to thank you guys for helping us get to another stage to elevate the platform.
Niceness.
Yeah, anything you want to wipe your feet on, Aaron?
Yes. You know what I want to wipe my feet on? And I do want to get to the cricket. You see them lizards and them that is being in your house making that noise living rent-free? Watch me. After 10 in the night, all you need to stop making that noise. Because if all you hear rent-free, all you need to respect time and place.
I hear you. I
make that noise when I go to work during the day.
All I say is I prefer lizards to roaches and flies and mosquitoes. So you know what?
Snakes.
To eat
all these different things.
Your lizards does eat snakes. Anyway, let me mind my business. Yes.
I live in the bush. So anyhow, so
this
now
new community here. How we starting this segment?
Well, that's what I'm gonna say. Now, for those of you that know, my last name is Williams, but we're bringing in somebody else with a W, right? So we're gonna introduce our first segment, and this one is called Willy with a Y.
Good evening, listeners. So glad you're here to keep us company this afternoon on WAC Radio 90.1 FM. This is the first installment of Willy with a Y. Huge respect to Ricardo and DJ Aaron for having me on their program. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight into it, shall we? There's a multi-billion-dollar piece of infrastructure in Pointe-a-Pierre that's just sitting there, taking breeze and collecting dust. One that nobody seems to want, despite the fact that others like it have been recording huge profits due to the conflict that's currently taking place between Russia and Ukraine. So, why is it that no one seems to want our refinery? How is it that we can sit less than 500 kilometers from Guyana, who has now around 11 billion barrels of proven reserves, and yet still they choose to send their oil to America to be refined? I mean, our own mothball is capable of refining around 120,000 barrels per day. Surely that is but a drop in the bucket of the estimated 750,000 barrels a day that Guyana seems to want to produce. Makes you wonder why, doesn't it? Maybe they fed up here the word curry chicken. Who knows? Maybe they find this capacity is too small. Or maybe the wrong colors currently hang in Whitehall. But enough about the refinery. I saw on news recently that a floodgate, which was designed to alleviate flooding in downtown Port of Spain, disappeared overnight, most likely carried off by that new invasive species, affectionately known as the iron termite. I would really like to find out why it is that no arrests have been made yet in conjunction with this discovery. The gate allegedly weighed over a ton, so that means specialist equipment would have had to be used. So why haven't the police turned up any leads as yet? Is it that we now have to form a new arm of law enforcement known as the Iron Patrol? These people cannot be allowed to continue to inconvenience us in the name of making a quick dollar. Gates, bridges, people's fence, a historic bell, and now a floodgate? And we have nobody in handcuffs as yet? Nah man, this can't be allowed to continue. We playing smart with foolishness or what? Just now I'll have to wonder if it is that these people paying an iron tax in order to operate, one that the goodly Minister of Finance knows nothing about. Final entry for today, folks. After all, I can't take up too much of Ricardo's and Aaron's time. I want to touch on journalism standards in Trinbago. Why is it that there's no penalty for deliberately reporting falsehoods in the Daily Gazette? We all know bacchanal and incendiary headlines sell papers and generate clicks. We get that. However, this does not, or rather, should not, allow the Gazette to sell falsehoods as fact, and when confronted with a PAPL, they retract the statement with a one paragraph that they need a magnifying glass to read. Whereas, when you printed the falsehoods, somebody standing on the bottom of High Street could read it from Library Corner. Those who can do better should do better, and the Daily Gazettes need to do better. But that's all for this week, folks. Thank you for listening, and remember the number one rule of social media: don't bring sense into the thing. This was Willy with a Y. Over to you, Aaron and Ricardo.
Now I understand why none of my posts on social media does get any likes or reactions, because I take things a little bit too seriously. Also,
you're breaking the number one rule, Aaron.
Right?
Don't bring sense into the thing.
And also, as somebody that works on the compound of that mothball daily, I do understand the eyesore that it is, all right? And I don't want to go any further than that. Ricardo, talk to us about the next segment.
Well, the next segment is an interesting one. This young lady has quite some very, very interesting perspectives on some of the things that we're seeing going on around us. But at the end of the day, all she really wants is one or two simple things from the country, you know. So I want to introduce this next segment, Please and Tankoo, with Dana Tankoo.
Hello friends, my name is Dana Tankoo, and today I'm going to be sharing a thought or two with you. Now today's thought is a little bit of a conspiracy, hear me out, bear with me, but you might find yourself agreeing at some points. Now, what frustrates us collectively as a nation? No, not fuel prices, no, not the government, not any specific member of parliament, but the deplorable roads. The deplorable roads frustrates us as a nation, which is why I think that the staff of WASA, not actually from here, I feel like the management and staff of the Water and Sewage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, not actually from Trinidad and Tobago, because nobody with a modicum of national pride could sleep peacefully at night knowing that you frustrate the entire nation. I think they're from neighboring nations who seek the downfall and demise of our beautiful republic, and they're starting from the ground up. Literally. Like the things that they're doing, honestly, this level of frustration should be classed as a crime against humanity. WASA. So, the roads are deplorable, gas prices are high, we can't work from home. Wait, is it that the contractors who are supposed to be working with WASA to repair the damage that they did to the roads probably called in and said that they're working from home? Is that a possibility? I didn't actually think about that, but thinking about it now, it seems a bit plausible, because I don't think anybody could unintentionally frustrate an entire country. Like, there must be a frustration master plan behind this, and it cannot come from anybody that is Trinity to the bone. So Wassa, whatever you're doing, if you're actually from here, please plan properly. Talk to the people, whoever you need to talk to when it comes to patching up properly the dig-ups that you do. Please, and Tankoo.
Aaron, I don't know how much of this we're gonna get away with before Kenny start to pull the plug on this. This young lady raised some valid points though.
I have a brethren that work in Wassa. I honestly don't feel he from here. I'm just saying. Anyhow, guys, now let's get down to the meat of tonight's matter. Please, as advertised, we have Ms Britteney Cayenne of Cayenne Forensic Psychological Consultancy. All right, let me just tell you really quickly a little bit about Britteney. She has 5 years professional experience in the mental health and social services sector. She has been rewarded opportunities to own competencies in psychological diagnostic assessment and intervention, counseling, psychoeducational lectures, database management, case management and consultation, employee mental health needs assessment, external agency liaison, and referrals, right? And these services were provided to clients of varied demographics. Let me go to the interlude, for Vorish, and we will get back into that.
Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room. Welcome to the living room.
And we are joined, as advertised, by Ms Britteney Cayenne. All right, Britteney, welcome back.
Thank you very much. I shall return.
And that's our guest song.
Nope. Oh my gosh. Here we have to school you again. No, it is Marshall. I shall return. You must come back.
But I think Kes has a song called I Shall Return as well. Anywho.
Oh. That's
the problem. That's the problem with being a DJ is you have so many songs in your head,
Yeah, yes, Aaron. That is the problem with being a DJ. Anyway. Britteney, it has been a couple months since you last joined us. You are a very, very, very instrumental part in our Addressing the Violence series, and I will admit that you put some things into perspective. Just a quick reminder: the premise of looking at violence from the mindset of the perpetrator was one that I believe a lot of us overlooked because we might be more familiar with the mindset of the victim, or the survivor, as the case may be. So I want to thank you again and remind people to go back and check it in DJ Aaron 868 YouTube, because Britteney broke it down and built it up. It was quite a conversation. So we're glad to have you back here with us for Mental Health Month.
Thank you for having me. Also, this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yeah.
So
surprisingly, this month is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So there's a lot of observances taking place in the month of October, and we try our best to address as much as we can. But today we are going to do a mixture of domestic violence and mental health. All right. But before we get down into the meat of today's discussion, Britteney, we ask you the same question that we ask all of our guests when they join us inside the living room. Not where's the scene or where's the word hummingbird. How are you?
all right. I will not give you the automatic response of I am okay, I'm well, I'm doing fine. I don't feel quite well today. I don't know if it is I'm coming down with something, but we will get through it.
Even at less than 100, what you'll give us is still top-notch, one of the greatest quality. I have that faith in you.
You have a lot of faith, so thanks. I will try not to disappoint.
I've got no custom to disappointment. You know, you do work with Aaron every week and it do flesh out your range of experiences.
Not getting involved.
And I'm going to say, I see where this discussion is heading, and I'd like to avoid that discussion today because we know that domestic violence doesn't just take the form of physical violence, it's also emotional abuse, it's also financial abuse. There are many types of abuse out there, and we don't condone any form or fashion inside the living room. All right. So
I want to apologize for my unprovoked. I don't want to use the word attacks, but if that's how you felt, well, I definitely do apologize for what I did that might have contributed to you feeling a kind of way.
Thank you very much for that. All right. Now, the last time you were with us, Brittany, you schooled us. I wouldn't say taught us. You schooled us that there's a difference between domestic violence and intimate partner violence, right? Can you remind us what's the difference between the two?
No problem. So in spaces, we tend to use the term interchangeably. We say domestic violence, we say intimate partner violence. However, yes, even though both phenomena, they have similar components, there is a difference. Let's start with domestic violence. When we look at the term domestic violence, domestic means home.
Mm-hmm.
What categories of persons make up a home or inhabit a home? This is a question I'm asking you all.
I would venture spousal in terms of
Right,
husband and wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Who else is within a home?
Parents and children.
Parents and children. And parents could be as in the, well, if it is we using the baseline as husband and wife or man and woman, then there can be their parents, which would be the elderly ones, and then below them would be in the familial structure there would be children. You could probably add in the dog and the cat too, right? But when it is we think about domestic violence, we're literally saying home violence. And we know that that same dynamic can happen to persons who are in visiting relationships, correct? So I think what it is we were supposed to do initially was to categorize what the violence is. So when it is we say domestic violence or we say intimate partner violence, we're talking about any sort of coercive tactics that is meant to subdue someone for one person to establish dominance or power and control. Yes, those elements can still happen in partnerships where persons don't live in the same house, but they are romantically involved or they are intimately involved, sexually involved. Also, intimate partner violence, it's a more encompassing term and inclusive term because as societies progress, we've acknowledged and accepted that relationships are not only heterosexual. They are homosexual, bisexual, pansexual. So we need to include all of that into our sphere. So when we say domestic violence could happen to any persons within a household. So it can be the husband and wife, whether it be wedded or common law. It can be the wife and the elderly person. It can be the wife and the child. It can be the child and the dog. It can be the child and the elderly.
In-laws then?
In-laws or blood.
Okay.
When we shift to intimate partner violence, what it is we're talking about is any persons who are in a relationship romantically or sexually, and there is a dynamic of abuse where there is coercive tactics occurring for one person to gain power and control over the other person. For the sake of this discussion that we have tonight, I would use the term IPV because it's more encompassing. Because the elements that exist in IPV will exist in domestic violence, but then certain elements in domestic violence, if it is we're talking about a child and a parent, it's not going to transfer over into IPV. So I am the guest, but audience, when it is I say IPV, I mean intimate partner violence.
All right. Now, just to clarify something, right? And this is something I happened to stumble across on another podcast that I was listening to that will remain unnamed. I heard you mention the term coercive tactics, all right? Is manipulation and manipulative behavior an example of coercive tactics?
Yes, it is. Because if you want to establish dominance over someone, you need to manipulate their minds, manipulate their body movements, and you yourself may need to manipulate in yourself that you might become trusting. So, for example, a person doesn't get into an abusive relationship knowing that someone is abusive. The abuser would tend to manipulate certain situations to come across as if they are charming. So they're engaging in an act that will woo someone. Then if it's a stage where the abuse is happening, let's just take, for example, emotional abuse or psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm.
You can manipulate the person to create a sense of, is this really my reality? What is really going on here? So it is a form of coercive tactic. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
I believe a colloquial expression of that would be, this can't be my life. You know, the whole what really going on here. Almost to the point where they may not even be able to tell someone about it because it doesn't even feel real to them. They just in such a state of, how could this have happened to me, or how did I let this get here type of thing.
And then what we see sometimes, well, not even sometimes, in all cases, if it is I want power and control, that means I want to disarm someone from their systems of support that gives them independence.
Mm-hmm.
So if I am generally an independent person, or if I have a high sense of self-esteem or self-concept, and I meet someone who is charismatic, I may take them for face value because I have been probably in trusting environments. That person would have had an ulterior motive. So when it is we got together and the love bomb happens, I get the flowers, I get the nice rides, the vacations, and then as I'm getting sucked into the relationship, bit by bit, the abuser or the perpetrator would now show signs. So you might realize that they may be slightly aggressive, or there may be a disagreement, and they may minimize your feelings. Wait till you get on so forth. Or they may shout at you, and then you clamor up inside. But then right after that, the person may apologize. So you may brush it off. And over time, when that cycle continues, the acts of the perpetrator would become larger and larger. But then you are sucked into this cycle, and then eventually you would become disarmed. So maybe I'm jumping ahead too much, but that is why sometimes we can't just sit down from a vantage point and say, well, why is it you just don't get out of this relationship if it's abusive? It's not that quite simple, because I've become disarmed. I don't have these systems of support anymore, or I just, as I was saying before, it's like a shift in my reality. Is this really happening to me?
All your boundary walls have been broken down now. So you see that behavior as the norm. Mm-hmm. And you think, okay, well, yeah, they'll just apologize tomorrow and we'll be back to normal.
No.
And there's a theory that explains the dynamic of intimate partner violence. It doesn't seek to explain why it happens. It just explains the entire dynamic. So we were talking about the love bombing before. So we call that the honeymoon phase. You get everything that you want. The person is very much charismatic. This is the person that you adore. Your family, everybody adores the person. And I'm saying person because, again, we understand that it can happen between man and woman. It can happen between man and man. It can happen between woman and woman. So we in this honeymoon phase. Then there's a tension building phase. So you realize that the person gets agitated, the perpetrator or the abuser gets agitated. So you start to walk around eggshells, and then you are a bit appeasing to the person because you don't want to upset them. Then we have the acute battering stage, where that's where the violence happens. And it is explosive. So after that happens, everybody's in shock. me, as the person experiencing the abuse, may say, well, would this really happen, or what caused this to happen? Now, the abuser, on the other hand, or the perpetrator, may turn around and say, I would never do it again, or what you did probably is because you did this. This is why it happened. So they're in this shock. And then they will go back to something, well, the honeymoon phase, but at this point in time, we call it the love, contrition, or the respite phase. I'm sorry, I will never do it again, but there comes the flowers again, and there comes every single action or behavior that made me fall in love with this person in the first place. So it's a cycle that sometimes we cannot get out of. And sometimes when we get out of, our brains would tend to not remember the bad things. We're gonna remember why it is we love the person in the first place. And I often say sometimes with relationships that are not abusive, when you break up with the person, you tend to miss the person, and then your brain will trick you to remember every single thing that was good, and it overshadows perhaps the bad or the problematic things. So you try to make it work again. Same thing like a domestic violence or intimate partner violence survivor. They would think about the good times, and then they may go back into the cycle, and then we go again.
If this person has presented themselves as being charming, caring, a good provider, the reputation that this person has is such that if you tell someone that this is what they've done, they don't have that frame of reference. As far as they're concerned, you would have had to be a contributor in some form or fashion. So now if everybody says that is a lovely guy, and you come saying, but wait, no, this is how Z treats me, their frame of reference would be, well, you would have had to have done something to warrant that, because that is not the person we know.
That is partially that is one of the many reasons why survivors don't go telling their stories. Because besides the perpetrator saying, well, nobody would believe you, or they may threaten and say, well, if it is you tell somebody, I will do X, Y, and Z to you. When they go out there, then they are re-victimized, and then they are victim blamed. Because how could you tell me that I did something when you've not been in the dynamic, you didn't see anything, but you're picking up for this person? And regardless of what it is I would have done in the situation, there's no reason for abuse. So then that's why it is they will clamor inside, and they would say, well, it's better I just don't tell my story. And one thing I want to say here, sometimes persons do want to get out. Well, I should say most of the times, or all the time, they do want to get out. But sometimes they would do a cost benefit analysis. So what are the cons and the pros of if it is I leave? What are the pros and the cons of if it is I stay? And sometimes the fear of leaving far outweighs the fear of staying. If it is I leave, what is going to happen to me? What is going to happen to my children? Would he or she stalk me? Would he make true on his threat that he will intimidate or kill the rest of my family? Aaron said something about financial abuse. So let's just say I am being abused. However, I still have a job. If I leave, do I have the financial independence to still stay in the situation or leave? And if it is I leave, is my perpetrator someone who has some sort of evidence against me that can dismantle my occupational status? Does he or she have nudes of me? Would he or she create a fake profile and tarnish my reputation, which now would create issues within my workplace? So there are certain factors that we from outside looking in from a vantage point will not understand. So that's why it is we can't just say, oh, it is you don't leave.
Yeah. So this is where the revenge leaks and that type of thing could come from, or withholding financial support, etc. The types of things that. Yeah.
Well played with keeping it to the word leaks, though.
Yes. I had a backspace.
Because they never admit that they intentionally did it. it just leaked, right?
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
The computer went to fix.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow,
Always.
yeah. Every time we have these kinds of conversations, it brings a level of introspection into the, as Britney said, some of the breakups that you would have had and the way that you would have dealt with them, and the remembering of only the good times and not sometimes the realities of what would have taken place to cause the breakup or to leave a situation, right? Now, we know that there are the physical signs to abuse, right? So let's just really quickly talk about some of the psychological signs that someone is being, that you could see that someone is being abused.
All right. We could talk, well, that's kind of expansive. And when it is we're talking about psychological signs of abuse, we're talking about behavioral, emotional, mental indicators. I'm not going to put it in that order, but it's all encompassing when it is we say psychological indicators of abuse. You can look at hyperarousal. So let's just say you have a friend. I'm going to explain it here on.
Sorry.
Hyperarousal is a state in which you are aroused beyond normal. So let's just say you are in a room. This is outside of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Something falls, you may not necessarily jump. But if you're hyperaroused because you've been in a dangerous situation and there was some threat of life or loss of limb or something like that, you can get hyperaroused by the slightest sound or sight. It tends to make you jumpy. So that's what it is I mean by hyperaroused. Remember, domestic violence is a dangerous situation. Intimate partner violence is a dangerous situation. So back into the explanation of, or the example of hyperarousal. If it is, I may use myself, if it is I am being abused and you come over by me, or I come over by you, and something falls and you realize that I am jumpy, or a glass may fall and then I become overly apologetic. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, and you realize that I'm in a panic state over something that you may evaluate as trivial. Those are some indicators that something is not quite right. If you look at hypervigilance, so I would use the same example. You come to my place and I am constantly looking over my shoulders, but I would make mention of, Sam or Daniel, and I use Sam or Daniel as a gender neutral name.
Yeah.
Sam or Daniel, who's my significant other, is supposed to come by just now. You person watching, well, I am watching the time, and there's this sort of tenseness. I'm always watching over the shoulders. I'm watching the door. That type of hypervigilance. If you have evaluated that my significant other is coming, why would you be tense? You're supposed to be happy or relaxed or at ease. So you're looking at that as an indicator.
Can I ask, sorry, in the hypervigilance, would this include checking your phone to make sure you didn't miss calls or messages, that type of thing?
Yeah. So you're constantly on alert. It can also look like hesitance to make decisions that would showcase autonomy or self-efficacy. So let's just say Aaron or Ricardo. Why did I call you Richard?
You habla de English.
Right.
Yeah.
If it is you come to me and you tell me, okay, let's go to the park, or let's go to a party, and I am accustomed making those, yeah, let me go. But all of a sudden I am hesitant and I'm saying, I'm not sure, I had to check with Sam or Daniel to see what they're doing and if I could go. Not saying that there are some healthy relationships where it is they've bonded so much that they do things together. But you have to have some level of discernment to know that how I said it didn't necessarily come across as if it's something functional or or healthy. It's more of a place of
hesitance
or fear.
So consideration leaks into concern then. Is not just, well, I should let my partner know for safety. It's like I'm afraid to not let my partner know.
Right. Because remember, I'm in a disarmed situation. I don't have power. I don't have control. And if I make that autonomous decision to go with Aaron or go with you, Ricardo, and my significant other did not approve of it, then the violence will come back again. So I'm trying to appease the situation by not even making that autonomous decision. I need to consult with my significant other. It can also look like if you are accustomed seeing me by myself before I got into this relationship, and then all of a sudden, every single where that I go, my significant other is accompanied. Again, understanding that there are persons that bond and have connected really well, and they are like thing one and thing two. But again, you have to use discernment. If you notice that in every certain space, my significant other is with me, I go in KFC, the following them. I go in the bank, the following them. And even in social spaces, you may realize that the person you know me to be, I've now become subdued. I'm not laughing much. I'm not interacting much. And then my partner is probably being overly charming. So you're seeing a disconnect in the energy between me and my partner. That can be an indicator that something is wrong. You're also looking at self-esteem too. So if it is you notice that I have this low sense of worth, I don't feel like I could do anything by myself, I don't think that I am worthy, also an indicator. When it is you would have noticed that before I was not that way. There was something else too that I wanted to bring into this space and I cannot remember right as an indicator. If I remember, I will segue back into it.
Sure, no problem.
But you like listening to these signs, it really puts you on high alert for some stuff now, because it has me stuttering now, because you'd have partners who or friends that you would see in situations be like, nah man, as you say, is the love bombing phase. But that love bombing phase might be going on like 5 years now or 6 years now. So it really now makes you wonder what is really going on. But again, I'm not a professional and I'm not in any way going to try to analyze that kind of situation.
I wild. Right.
Wow.
I want to use this opportunity to point out here that some of the things that Britteney has expressed, I've seen men do in relationships to avoid the quarrel or a type of response from the partner, where I've seen thinking about it now, way too many of the things that we've spoken about being normal behavior to avoid the rab, to avoid the argument, to maintain the peace.
So essentially, Ricardo, what you're saying there, and this is something Brittany and I were talking about when we were discussing the talking points of today's program, is without the establishment of proper boundaries within relationships, there's a higher possibility for situations like this to arise.
As I suggested earlier, when consideration becomes concern, then you have to ask yourself, am I concerned about my partner being affected, or am I concerned about what my partner might do?
How they're going to react or respond.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Okay, so again, everything within reason, and there is no sharp delineation, there is no black and white. Sometimes there's a gray area. We've all been in situations where it is, if we go out, our partner may be offended or may feel a type of way. It's healthy to feel a type of way or to feel left out or feel as though you were not taken into consideration in a decision. So let's just say my partner wanted to carry me somewhere, and on the same day I decided to go with Aaron somewhere else and I didn't consult. My partner is going to feel how
Yeah.
for want of a colloquial term, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if it is, my concern is, I wonder if it is he or she is going to berate me. I wonder if he or she is going to beat me. I wonder if he or she is going to take away some of my finances. I wonder if he or she, when it is I get home, they try to establish dominance by saying, oh, so you went out with X, Y, and Z and try to sexually assault me because you left me and I wanted to be pleased at this particular point, but I couldn't. So now let me take it from you now. And I don't have any power or control over that. If I take in all those factors before I can say, well, let's go somewhere, or agree to Aaron to go somewhere, or I'm at a state where it is, I really need to consult with Sam or Danielle first, then we're going into the realm of this is a violent relationship dynamic that's going on here. Is it a bit clearer?
Yeah. You also there was one example that came to mind as well. If I don't tell my partner where I am and they find out, they may show up. The one where you're minding your business, you make a little turn, the line run a little long, and then they pull up. I don't want to say, but dragging cutlass or blowing horn and ready to fight and ramsack because you make a turn, they don't know where you are, so that's somehow diminishing to them now. You're embarrassing me, right? You feel you're in control of this thing.
Just no, wait. I want to ask, as Ricardo brought that up there, or is it like we could throw in as well that you didn't tell your partner where they're going and they happen to see a WhatsApp story or Instagram story, and then is a message, also you can tell me where you went? Could that be included in this?
You throwing me on spot. So I'm gonna
Yes,
pose the question to you,
So who-
Aaron.
to Aaron.
Mhm.
Yeah, to Aaron. Do you believe in accountability in relationships?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And for all relationships are not equal. Some persons may perceive accountability to mean you check in with me during certain points of the day, but you don't necessarily have to tell me where you are. There are some persons who may agree that accountability means if I'm going X, I let you know that I'm going X. And it's a mutual agreement. The question or the scenario that you pose there, it can be the person is annoyed because the established accountability agreements between the two persons were not honored, or it could just really be a state of intimate partner violence. So we need background information to contextualize that particular scenario.
I love context. That is my go-to response to everything. What is the context of this situation I present me with?
Yeah, you need to be very much cautious before you answer. I don't want no court close. Can't fit in court.
Hey,
Cool. So I don't have to answer. That's great, right?
Because next thing they say, well, a psychologist was on work, and if you message me and you say that means you abusing me. We need more context.
And that's very important, because as we established last week with jail, in terms of the exercises to ease with anxiety, it can't just be a one-off thing for you to be able to curb the situation. You need to continuously do the exercises, right? So if the behavior is continuous, then it's an issue.
Yeah.
Well, when I say behavior, I mean the question,
I want to go back to something just now when it is we were talking about the person showing concern that you went somewhere and you didn't let me know. Here's how manipulation can start. I am entering into a new relationship with someone. I may or may not tell them where it is I'm going because we've not gotten to a place where it is we've contractualized what accountability looks like in our dynamic.
Yeah.
And then they message me and they say, oh, so you went so by so. And then when you question them about it. Nah, well, you see, I just want to make sure that you're
You're
safe.
safe.
So they manipulate it to make it look like if it is, I'm just concerned about your safety and your well-being, when more than likely it's not that. So at first I will be like, oh, he or she really cares about me. Oh my God. But then later on in the relationship, I realized, no, this person was just trying to control my whereabouts. And that person probably was extremely jealous because if I'm not with them, they believe that I am with someone else or I'm being unfaithful. And again, context. Everyone, it's a human experience to have some sort of jealousy. Sometimes we may feel jealous, or we may feel, we don't really say it in Trinidad, we might feel a how. Feel a how about something. But when it's excessive jealousy, like, nah, I want you to lock off X, Y, and Z, I'm not comfortable with that. Context again. Maybe you would have done something that makes the person, but if there is no reason and they say lock off this person, and then you realize that bit by bit this person is trying to isolate me from my systems of my support, my social systems of support, my familial systems of support, because sometimes they'll be like, your family toxic, you need to lock them off, or what is you need to call them for.
Yeah, I in the interest of making sure that we don't make any definitive statements that we're going to be held accountable for, I would like to postulate it is okay to acknowledge that there are people who are legitimate threats to your relationship. If you find your partner is associating with somebody that you know and they know is a legitimate threat to the stability of your relationship, it is okay to feel uncomfortable. However, when you start dictating with your red marker as to who you approve and disapprove of, well then now again we might have crossed the point of consideration and into concern.
There was something else that I wanted to bring up in terms of manipulation, and I think real world scenarios helps the conversation.
Yeah.
So just like we gave that example, I recently had a client who would have gotten pregnant by her significant other. And at the beginning, she just at a surface level assumed, well, he wanted a child. She did not want a child. But as time progressed, she realized that in colloquial terms, we like to say trap. But that was a manipulation for power and control. And then he would have turned it into, don't talk on the phone because the radiation is going to affect the baby. But really and truly, the ulterior motive was for him to isolate her from her systems of support.
Yeah. Wow. I want that. Just to, again, I like analogy, but when you're watching all these heist movies, the first thing they just do is disable the alarms. The first thing they will do when they're breaking in a house or breaking in a car is try to disable the alarm. Right? If you cannot signal for help,
you see why? Because I said
disarming.
See why it is I use the word disarming.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I'm disarmed and the systems of support that makes me independent or interdependent no longer exists, the only person that is left is the person who has power and control. So now, how am I going to get out of that situation? Don't come and tell me, why it is in leave.
Right. Even the perpetrators of this abuse would be the ones to tell you, well, pick up and go. Because it reinforces that you don't have the options that you think you do.
Would the perpetrator telling you pick up and go be an example of gaslighting?
Context again. Pick up and go because you're free. It could be because they're trying to question you. They're trying to manipulate you to question your reality. So in one aspect, if it is but you are abusing me, and I am confronting you about the situation that you're this dynamic is unhealthy, or I feel as though I'm abused, and they say, well, you pick up yourself and you leave. That can be a form of gaslighting, because they would say, well, you're free to go. If it is I was abusing you, you would not have been able to go in the first place. Yeah. Also, it could just be an idle, well, I know you have nowhere to go, so pick up and go. So I ain't already taking you on. I'm minimizing whatever you say, because you're going to come right back. Who you're going to go to? Where you're going to go to? What support you have?
Now, as you mentioned the word support, Brittany, we are trying to end each episode by asking the guests to direct our listeners to an avenue where they can access mental health services, counseling or therapy, whichever one it is they choose to access, all right? What direction can you point persons in?
Persons who are experiencing intimate partner violence or domestic violence, they can contact 800-SAVE. There is also a unit within the TTPS that deals with matters of intimate partner violence. They can also make a report. If you're talking about psychosocial support, like counseling and social services, there are a number of non-governmental agencies that provide free support. It's funded, or there are donors that would fund these sessions, because it's counselors and psychologists, it's a scientific profession. It's a profession. We would come across as if we're just talking, but we're using evidence-based approaches, so it needs to be paid for. So there are a number of non-governmental agencies that would be able to assist. There is the Coalition Against Domestic Violence, there is Rape Crisis Society, there is Families in Action. Let's just assume that the domestic violence dynamic is with a child and someone else within the family. There is also Childline. If, again, with the child, if someone notices there is an instance of domestic abuse and a child is impacted, Children's Authority. Then you have the private practices. So, shameless plug here. Hi, I am Britteney Cayenne. I am a forensic psychologist. I have experience in providing psychosocial support for persons who have experienced and survived sexual and gender-based violence.
In a situation where, helplessness is a serious thing. It is a... Listen, one of the reasons I've noticed people don't like hearing about other people's problems is because of it highlights their inability to actually do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So if at least you could give somebody some information is a step.
We're talking about disarming and arming. You, as a normal citizen with no psychosocial experience, can also arm yourself with information that, should you notice that someone is in a situation, well, a domestic violence or intimate partner violence situation, arm yourself with information so that you can dispense to the person. Because, as Ricardo said, learned helplessness is a thing. If you've been kidnapped and you try all how to get out of this strange zone, but every time you try, you're coming up with obstacles, you're not succeeding, what is going to happen? You're just going to, all right, well, this is my reality, I just have to accept it. So you become disempowered. Sometimes you may need someone to rescue you. And back to domestic violence and intimate partner violence. Sometimes the rescuing can be someone lending support in terms of just listening. So, for example, Ricardo or Aaron, if you notice that someone may be experiencing abuse, you can say, hey, I'm a bit concerned about you. Is everything okay? They may not want to talk one time because, again, they may become distrusting, and that's one of the psychological indicators of abuse. But you can ask them random questions like, How is everything at home? Is everyone getting along at home? That's a kind of neutral question that can be asked. Or if they've come out and said that they're being abused, you can listen. Don't try to insert yourself into the narrative. You can, the information that you've armed yourself with, you can dispense to them. Or you can ask them, is there any way that I can help you? You can validate how they feel at the particular time. This is a very difficult situation, and I can only imagine how difficult it is for you to navigate in that space. You must feel helpless. Is there anything that I can do? Sometimes you can take a proactive approach where it is you can probably create a safe bag for them. So either discussing it with them, or if you're close enough, say, you know, if ever you need to run or you get an opportunity to leave, you could come by me. Don't worry yourself. I have toothpaste, I have extra pairs of underwear, I have extra clothing, I have a phone card, I probably have a SIM card, or we could go and get a SIM card if it is you have to switch out your number. So that is more productive than just telling the person, well, why does he didn't leave yet?
Now, Brittany, we are getting perilously close to the end of tonight's program, all right? And I think what we just ended with, I think we need to have you back to have a whole show on that, because I know that's something that you and I were deliberating. So we need just that for a whole show. We don't know when, because after this we have more mental health topics coming up, and then next month is men's health, and then after that it's Christmas, and we want to do some sampling of black cake and puncha creme and stuff like that.
Okay.
That
would be the third time that I would be there, so I will be calling myself a veteran. And you all may need to get me a WAC jersey, because by that time I'm not even a guest anymore.
We'll tell Kenny to organize that jersey.
Oh my gosh, we had to get a bigger house, you know.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
We might have to really move into one library place.
yeah, we going on by jail. One library place.
One library place, right?
One so don't take my couch, because I have a couch there before. We gonna fight.
All right.
All right. Anyway,
we just talk about violence, right?
Yeah.
And then we will flip a coin.
Coin flipping.
Yeah.
We'll play a game of all fours.
We'll contest for it. That sounds a little more appropriate.
I like what you say there.
We'll play a game of all fours, and whoever win, yeah.
That's no
I can't say all fours, so sorry.
Right.
Casper card without card. Well, I don't want all fours smoke. Trust me.
Right.
Oh my.
This is anyway. I'm gonna be that guy. Brittany, you know, we want to take this opportunity to thank you for despite not feeling well, for sharing this knowledge with us inside the living room today. Any quick closing remarks before we sign out?
Nothing other than please be supportive to your fellow kind. You sometimes are in a place of privilege, and that may obscure your perception on things. So just be mindful that how you interact with someone is very important, and how you interact can be the difference of them staying in a situation or finding the power or the support to leave a situation. I also want to thank you all for continuing the conversation on mental health. I'm super proud of you all.
I need to clean this AC.
To clean my fan.
Thanks, Britt.
Thank you very much, Britt.
Well, let me run off. This is Ricardo Mitchell, the social sage on the local stage. Wait, no, I haven't grown back my beard yet. So this is Ricardo Mitchell, the babyface sage, thanking you guys for joining us in the living room. I want to thank you, Brittany, for what you are doing. I want to thank the listeners for being with us as we start season 4. This is our 51st video episode. So Brittany, in case you didn't know, you are episode 1 of season 4.
I was just gonna tell you, subtract that 5 and keep the 1. Right?
Yeah. We fresh. So thank you very much for being on this journey with us. And despite how you're feeling, for bringing our conversation that we needed to have, and we will be expounding on as we go forward. So, you guys, please remember that the hourglass is opaque. We don't know how much time remains, so whatever you're doing, be good and stay safe. Aaron?
And well, I already said thank you to Brittany, and we do look forward to having you back. This is yours truly, DJ Aaron 868. I'm always great and I'm never late. I always tell you guys that love is the currency, so spend some today. Let somebody know that you love them, please. All right. Up next is Mr. Desmond with the big band, and wait, yeah, I'll be back on Friday. I thought this was the next Friday, when I'm gonna be here.
Yeah.
On vacation. All right. Keep it locked, guys.